So great perspective on embracing the uncertainty, definitely. And we are moving to another perspective of a professional that has expertise in the OT space. We'll talk about how companies reduce their attack surface and identify the vulnerability in critical assets. And the speaker would be Carlos Buenano, Principal Solutions Architect for OT in Armis. Welcome to stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, just a clicker. Thanks, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is actually a pleasure for me. I feel so humbled for having this opportunity, especially being in Tel Aviv, the cybersecurity capital of the world, no doubt. My name is Carlos Buenano. I work for Armis. I've been working for Armis for the last 4 years, but this is not the first time that I've been working in cybersecurity space. So, especially in the industry, especially oil and gas. So the first path of my career was to basically design and implement a control network in Australia. It was a very challenging experience because essentially we needed to protect wells that were actually in the middle of nowhere, and that motivated me to continue on protecting OT environments, IT and OT environments in the oil and gas industry. And I wanted to actually share a couple of things that we learned along the way, how to reduce attack surface. But just let's have a look at what the problem is. So when it comes to control systems, there is a lot of devices that are on the network. And one of the things that we see is the growth of unmanageable devices, devices that we can't install an agent, devices that we have basically firmwares that are controlled by vendors. These devices cannot freely be updated because they need to follow a very strict control of quality when it comes to functionality and making sure that the device works as intended without basically downtime or shutdowns for the plant, essentially very, very business critical devices that, if they break for whatever reason, then the companies will actually lose a lot of money. And we have a lot of these devices, and in terms of looking at the devices that are managed in comparison to devices that aren't managed, the growth is this year you can actually see that continue on growing exponentially. I'm not talking about only ICS devices, we're also talking about cameras, TVs, monitors, everything that is currently being connected. And the reason why they are connected is just to improve productivity, efficiency, and it's becoming a necessity, to make sure that the companies continue on producing as much as possible with the technology that they already have. On top of that, there is a lot of tools that have been released to manage OT and IT networks. These platforms are designed to protect different side or types or silos of the network. But unfortunately, it's so little that we can actually do for ICS and IoT devices in this particular case. There's a lot of disparate platforms. It's very difficult to understand the scopes of each individual platforms. To manage them, they have to go through different ways and different consoles. And in a way, talking about gaps and understanding, which devices are protected and which are not. So it takes a lot of effort just to come and combine them all into one. On top of that, we have seen a lot of attacks, from Stuxnet, which is a very, very it was a very specialized campaign that wanted to bring down a company in Ukraine in the energy market. And then we can see these attacks being more and more sophisticated and getting into OT environments. And it's becoming quite concerning because, again, ICS devices are very difficult to maintain and reduce that attack surface. So there is a lot of efforts when it comes to IT and OT convergence. It is very important to understand IT and OT convergence because there is a lot of benefits when it comes to managing devices, taking all the learnings from an IT point of view, but also understanding the OT requirements and how limited they are in providing, applications to improve the efficiency. So they are clash naturally. However, there is a lot of benefits in terms of maintenance, analytics, producing reporting to improve production when it comes to getting the data from the OT environments into the IT environments, to their scheduling, reporting, and all these things that are required from an operational point of view to improve production. Of course, when we see this merge of the two networks and being IT networks trying to provide more and more applications, but the OT network trying to reduce the exposure from what is happening on the network, there is a problem that the attack surface increases, and then it becomes more and more difficult to protect, given the fact that what we discussed before. These devices are very hard to update, and the vulnerabilities continue increasing, and then there is no way for us to protect them. And then this raises a lot of questions. Okay, how many assets of this type do I have? What is the vulnerability? What is the criticality of the devices? What versions of software, applications, operating systems, firmware versions, which ones are vulnerable? Do I have a CMDB? Is the CMDB up to date? Are they really containing the data that they say they are? So which devices are, again, critical to the business and so forth? So all these questions are raised, and there is no a simple way for us to then answer those questions unless that we do something about it, and unless we start looking at all these platforms and unifying this information into only one platform to have a look at it. So the idea here is then to understand this problem and convert it into a solution. And the solution, we can divide it into three different pillars. The first pillar is, okay, well, let's discover all the devices. Let's understand what the devices are, what they're doing, how they're connecting to each other, what protocols they are using to communicate. Is the protocol secure? Is it not secure? And then that comes into the second pillar. It's like, okay, let's do a risk assessment of the device. What the device is doing in terms of cybersecurity posture. Is it connecting to other devices using an encrypted traffic? Is the certificates are actually up to date? Is the operating system end of life? What vulnerabilities do I have? How can I prioritize the vulnerabilities for these devices? And the last pillar is, okay, now that I understand the problem, I understand my devices, I understand my gaps, I understand the vulnerabilities that I have, what do I do about it? So do I protect it? In an OT environment, how do I protect them? Because I can't just block a device because that could bring the production down. So what do I do? Do I do zero trust? I start implementing zero trust standards. What do I do? So then we need to understand everything everywhere, whether it's actually on the wired network, on the wireless network, or anything that's actually related to third-party devices, right? So essentially nothing, you need to actually gain visibility across everything to be able to protect it. So there's an approach here that then, okay, well, let's just combine all this information into only one platform, do integrations to collect all that information that we talk about from managed devices or managed platforms, Active Directory, EDRs, vulnerability scanners, any cybersecurity tool that can provide all the information and bring it into one single platform, understand all the information that is coming live on the wide network, or also on the wireless network. Let's create profiles for each individual device so we understand the security posture of every single device, so that we can create reports, we can actually create dashboards, we can create different policies that allows us to act accordingly when it comes to an anomalous behavior. So do I block it? Do I follow a specific risk assessment process to actually create the controls that is going to allow me to protect the devices? And these actually controls need to actually be understood in the OT environment, because whatever consequence or whatever actions that I actually apply to these specific devices, I need to understand the consequence and then leverage these actions accordingly. Now, the real benefit is actually put all this into that one platform and then start looking at the gaps. For instance, we are able, if we are able to discover all the devices, then we understand which part of the devices are managed by these security platforms, but also all these devices that have not been protected by anything, right? And then you gain that visibility across and that profile across all the devices in total. Thank you.